Hello and welcome to another episode of Building a Business, Grit and Grace, where we have conversations with business owners from Canada so far, but also from around the world. And today I have the pleasure of talking with someone I met in a Darren Hardy uh, community in the Hardy Club. It's a person I've been talking with every single week for the past 3 or 4 months now. And I'm really excited for him to share his experience. So, without further ado, Dan, welcome to the podcast. It's such an honor to have you here.
Thank you,
Uh,
Anna. It's a pleasure. It's an honor to be with you.
Oh, thank you. Really, really appreciate it. And starting with the obvious question, introduce yourself and what your business is all about.
As far as introductions, as Anna said, my name is Dan McPherson. My company is called the Laketta Group. If anybody knows anything about me, it's my family is my, so that's where my company name came from. LE is my first two letters of my wife's name. KE is my son. TA is my daughter, and GR is my youngest son. So that's where it came from, Laketta Group. So, side note, they did ask me, "What about you?" And I said, "Well, if the company ever goes belly up, I don't want to be attached to it." But um, my company's been probably incorporated since 2014. I've had other companies, um, and an old school, you've got to fail to learn. And a couple of companies that I did start, first one was just a nightmare because I just thought, oh, I got to own my own business, but I wasn't organized and I didn't plan it and stuff like that. The second one, it went okay, but the product line was somewhat limited and it was tough to establish a regular income. So I've been in these, I grew up, my father was the president of a large organization, and I grew up in the sort of the sales type um, arena. Um, and I've always enjoyed the relationships more than the actual process. Um, so I started out in the automotive industry, but the Laketta Group has started really because I was working for a manufacturer in the United States. I represented their products for Canada, and then from California up to Alaska to Hawaii. So I managed their West Coast and all their Canadian operations. And it was an American company. I live in Canada. And I sat with my accountant and I said, I'm really not doing very well on the tax, you know, so
Oh, yeah.
So, you know what? I started this company in 14. It actually, like, it was a dormant company that I resurrected, but I started it more initially for a tax reason. Um, so now my company, so I went to my manufacturer and I said, if I incorporate a company, would you just pay me a commission and I'll do my own expenses? Um, so we agreed on a commission and then off we went. You know, my business has always been to grow the people's business. Um, So that's how it started, really, just as a tax incentive. So, but what ended up happening, because over the years you develop so many contacts, people were looking for things that my supplier did not have.
Hmm.
And the one thing with anybody that works for me or with me, integrity is very, very high on my list. So, in clear conscience, I could not sell something for, even though it didn't compete with these people. So I hired my son. I set up a bunch of suppliers for him, and I let my current supplier knowing what I was doing. Anything that, this current supplier did not have, my son was going to sell it to them. So that started quietly, making a
Yeah.
little bit of money and stuff like that. It was a good education for him, and I think and he became more of a bookkeeper working with my accountant. And one of the most valuable lessons he got, which I never had when I was younger, was he started to understand money.
Oh, yes, it's so important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like he started to understand, basically from a tax perspective, right through how to manage your own money. So that was a lesson that, once again, it really wasn't intended, but growing to the point where I thought it's generating enough income to feed him and myself. So my supplier and I parted in January a couple of years ago, and I started my company full time. Like I spent my time full time in it. So I've got two or three suppliers in Canada. Um, I have we do export around the world. Mostly on engine parts, people reach out to us to find stuff. So in my travels, as Anna's got to know me a little bit, idle hands don't work well for me. My mind starts to wander. So I was on one of my calls in the Dairy and Hardy group, and there was a realtor in there because I brought a girl in to do my marketing and develop a website. Because I had grown to, probably net income of close to $1 million, in the company with no advertising. So no advertising, nothing, just through my reputation, through my association, through my contacts. So I hired a girl. She's actually the same age as my son, who's doing the books
Mhm.
too. She's very artistic to do some marketing. So I was in a call with one of my Darren Hardy group, and the realtor in Florida said that he wants to build a booklet, and he's trying to find somebody that can do it. And I said, well, my marketing girl, do you want her to look at it? No, I said, go ahead. So he gave it to her on a Friday. She sent him the complete booklet with UR codes and everything by Sunday.
Wow.
And the only thing she doesn't do very well is invoice. She charged him $50 for it. So,
Okay, yes.
but his only comment was, you have all my print business from now on. So I thought, well, it's kind of interesting. I said, so now I can go to companies, do some marketing on the heavy engine equipment parts, and I can also take over a lot of their print and media and all their stuff like that. So because of that, within the first month, we took over a B&B franchise in North Carolina. We're doing all their print. We're doing some work for an electric tractor manufacturer. But now we're developing, so we have a print and digital marketing arm. And through her, we met somebody she used to work for who does social media marketing and tracking and metrics and stuff like that. So my girl said, why don't we buy her? And I said, well, she's got nothing to sell. You know, there's no bricks and mortar. I said, so I met with the girl, we had coffee, and I said, why don't I just swallow your company? You make all your same percentages, but we'll sell your stuff as a service. So that's still in the works. And then I'm always looking for ideas, and my mind, like I said, I don't do idle very well. So um, I do some, I don't know if you'd call it charity work, but I manage a bunch of properties where I live for seniors and single moms, helping them get on their feet. We work with the government. So I had an older gentleman who was living on a budget, came by, and he was struggling. And I said, well, there's only two things you can do: is make more money than your pension, or cut your expenses. I said, I don't know any other way around that. So, and I guess I might be getting a little detailed, but at the end of the day, I just, um, he wanted to, I said, maybe I should sell my car. And I said, that's your independence. I don't recommend that. Long story short, I got him a job as a crossing guard. He makes an extra
Oh,
$800 a month.
nice. Yeah.
I did all
Mhm.
his paperwork for him. I did a resume for him. I helped him. I walked him through the whole thing. But after he left, he was very appreciative. But what I said was, I'm standing there on my front porch having my coffee, thinking about what's with everybody's complaining about the economy these days.
True.
So, companies, they're doing cutbacks, this kind of thing. So we're in the process of putting the whole program together. We're calling it sales enhancement. is another section of my company where we are we go to companies and we take over their sales force. They pay my company a commission. We train their reps, get rid of the dead weight, and we manage their business. So that way they don't have any administration expenses. They just pay us. We report to them on a monthly basis or quarterly, whatever they want. And we untap the reps are all untapped of what they can earn. So that's part three of the company. And then I met with a gentleman that we both know who was struggling, is looking to augment his income. And I said, I don't see a job with me, but why don't I market your products through my website? We'll incorporate that in. He said, you do that? And I said, I'd be happy to do that. And he's also got some international contacts, and I have an export division. So he's going to make a little on the side from what we do export through him. So, and the common theme in all of these, and anybody that comes to my company, if we don't help somebody, we don't do it. And probably the best analogy I had was a lesson I gave to my children. They were a little younger. But I was in Sacramento, California, and there was a young, I believe she was a Mexican lady with her two little children begging outside of a safety grocery store for food. And she wasn't overly clean, but she was presentable, and she was polite.
Yeah.
So I said, why don't you come with me? And I took her in and we spent $220 on groceries. And she bought vegetables and milk and, all healthy things. And the lady at the cash said, she's just using you. I said, if you choose to believe that way in people, then that's your choice. I said, I can't do anything about that. So, but then I took her and I drove her back to the little shanty she lived in, and she cried and gave me a big hug. And when I said to my kids, you will never, ever in your whole entire life get a better feeling than that when you do something for somebody, and it's something I've really, really probably, and my father, who was an executive, him and I used to fight all the time about money.
Oh,
Like I said, Dad, you equate dollars to success, and I said, I'm just not wired that way. I think a book I read once, it was called Start With Why, because I'm an incessant reader, by Simon Sinek. But what resonated with me is a lot of people know what to do and they know how to do it, but they never ask themselves why they're doing it. So when I talk to a client and they want to do something, there's probably about 15 whys in that conversation. What's the real reason we want to do this? So if somebody comes to me and they want to make more money, I said, you can make lots of money here. Why do you want to work here? And if money is the only reason, it's not going to work.
yeah.
We will walk away from things, because it doesn't fit with the integrity, and because the only thing we have at the end of the day is our reputation. So we built the company based on caring. Like my son once said, I'd like to maybe do what you do for success. I said, well, Kent, if you think what I do is success, I said, I hate to burst your bubble. I've been to some great courses. I've been to some bad courses, whatever. And I went through the whole litany of books and everything. And I said, at the end of the day, I said, I care about people. I said, you can't fake sincerity. So I would include, you mentioned earlier, Darren Hardy. He's been instrumental in keeping me focused. Um, but I study. Like my brother called himself a professional salesperson once. I said, what's that mean? He says, well, I read about it and I study it. I'm a professional at it. So you get what you put into it. I don't know if I'm a textbook that somebody how you would want to run a business. Everybody in my company, we have a weekly teams meeting, my company. Everybody has an opinion.
Oh,
And
yeah.
but we discuss, everybody has a say. Like I'm hiring an administrator, for example, and I did up a job description through a scorecard on the AI. And I sent it to everybody in my company. I said, we need an administrator. Here's sort of what I'm thinking. What do you guys think? Is there stuff that should be on there that's not? Is there stuff that should be there that you don't want? But that's how decisions are made in our company. So I don't have a university degree. I've fallen down more than I've gotten, but I just keep going. So uh, it's got to be fun.
Yeah.
It sounds somewhat simple. Yes, I've put systems in a brand new CRM system. I've got people doing this. I've got this, and this. We've hired somebody to work with my internal staff. So we've done a lot of things like a business after the business masterclass that we all attended. I said, okay, Dan, this is a hobby. Is it going to be a job? So I made the commitment and spent a bunch of money. Um, and now um, we've expanded. I think we've got 9 on the payroll now from me and my son in the space of 2 years. So I don't know what they're making because I'm also the master of delegating. My job is to think and expand. And like my job is not to do that. I can be involved and help wherever I needed. But on the administration side, the joke I always tell is my marketing girl sent me a thing and she said, "Do you want us to use the company colors?" And I said, "I have company colors?" She goes, "Dan, jeez, how many years have I been doing this?" And I said, "Well," so she sent me the 4 Google Docs of the colors. She said, "Open these docs and tell me which one you like." And I emailed her back. I said, "It's so cute. You think I'm actually going to do that? Your marketing figured out." Like, that's how I run it. Like, this girl I'm meeting for the administration, I said, "We are going to train you and nobody's going to disappear and you can get help from anybody in this organization. But this will be once you see the job and what the description is, it's your job to run it.
Yeah,
You
you
want to
own
change,
it.
you
Yeah.
own it. You want to change something, change it." And one of the lines you hear a lot about, and I asked this to a lot of people a lot of times. I said, "What's the one thing people in this world want more than anything?" And hear money, this prestige, whatever. But at the end of the day, and when I first heard it, I thought, but it's validation. People need to know they matter. They need to know you listen to them, and I've had people approach some of my clients and they just said, "No, because we can find Dan 24 hours a day. He returns all our messages. He fixes all our problems. So I really don't care what your price is." So, but we're not everybody's going to be like that. But, so the company went from where it was to, I don't know how big it's going to get. I can tell you one thing. I'm probably the only one in the company that doesn't get a salary. My expenses get paid,
Oh, yes.
and that's about it. In the sense that, and the way I've structured it as well is you can be in administration, but you're not tapped what you make.
Hmm.
Everybody gets a percentage of what the company brings in. That's how everybody's paid.
I
So
love listening to everything you share about your business because, in some ways, it's so unconventional. Like you said, like you grew the business without the traditional marketing and things like this. Like I think you mentioned you didn't have a website until
still don't have
pretty
it. It's not
recently.
finished.
Oh,
It's not
oh, it's
finished
not
yet.
finished yet. Yeah. Yeah, it's like, and like you said, you can't fake this. Like you can't fake the care and really putting others first and giving more, giving. This is one thing that stands out during our conversations every week and with what you were sharing. And it's really a fascinating journey seeing how you've built something out of nothing through being an amazing human being, caring about others, and yes, of course, putting the hours in. Right? We were just chatting before we started the recording that you'll be working in the evening.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just,
Yeah, go ahead.
oh no, go ahead. Sorry.
With everything that like you are doing right now, like it's interesting how it's evolving in ways that it doesn't look like you're planning. Like you're taking advantage of opportunities. And today, Darren Hardy, actually, the Darren Daly, he talked about luck and how lucky some people are and how actually we are all lucky. And I do love the description, the definition of luck in the compound effect, speaking of books from Darren Hardy, where he talks about a definition that goes beyond preparation meets opportunity, because you need to have the attitude, like, yes, preparation, you need it. Then you need also to have the attitude, no, the mindset to see the opportunity, and then, of course, the opportunity, and then taking action. And I can see so much in this with the story you were sharing. I can see so much with, like, the mindset you have, right? Like all these opportunities where you jump and say, "Oh, let me do this." Like the marketing. Like I have someone working on marketing, and she can help with this for you on a call. Like you said, you had another call with a realtor, and like seeing those opportunities, that kind of mindset, it's so powerful. And what I'm wondering is, like, you did mention you were reading books. You said that you've had some conversations with your dad where, like, you had different opinions. So I'm actually curious, like, how did you develop this kind of mindset, and what are you doing to keep it in, to keep it up and keep on being this giving and positive person?
Um, I think I've always been somebody who wants to do things for people. I've never been comfortable being in the spotlight. Like I had a US hockey scholarship and all my friends
Mhm.
didn't play hockey, I just did that. That was fun to do, but that's not who I am. So, um, long before I met Darren, and I'll never walk on hot coals or anything, but I went through a 12-week seminar with Tony Robbins.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and that was probably, God, I don't know how many years ago. Um, but the best thing I got out of that was, and I'll say it and then I'll explain it, was control your state of mind, control your happiness. So, and one of the things he did, he talked about his son who got some balloons. He was pretty jazzed for his birthday, and he said, you can keep all those balloons, or we can go to the seniors' home and give them to some of the seniors. And the way his son got jazzed, seeing these people light up. But by the state of mind, we were at a function once at the family. My sister-in-law said, "That doesn't make any sense." And she said, "What?" And I said, the only reason the only time you get angry is when you're angry." I said, "Yeah." And she said, "That makes no sense." I said, "Wendy, understand something." I said, people say you can control your state. I actually live it.
Yeah.
So if I believe in you control your state of mind, so if I'm angry, somebody else is controlling my state of mind. That makes me angry. So what it's done, to say I never get angry would be a lie, but it certainly, the fuse is a lot shorter and it doesn't last because I recognize it. Because you can't control what you say and do. You can only control how you respond. So I limit what I take on. I'm not big on gossip. Like they're one of my company, they all, the marketing people, they want to do a social media campaign. I said, 100%, just keep me away from it. I said, I don't want any part.
Yeah.
I want to approve content, whatever that type of thing. But as far as managing that, I said, I want to be as far away as possible. And I think the other thing too is what I do with anybody that works with me, or well, they all work with me, is you have 100% of my trust until you don't. And that's the way I could say that is, and that goes with relationships, because one of the biggest things my father used to have a saying, the biggest problem with communication is thinking it's happened. So, and I like
Yeah.
that. It makes a lot of sense. But my youngest son, when he was in university, his first year, him and his girlfriend, they broke up and he was devastated. They have since got back together. Now he's 27 or
Mhm.
whatever, and they live together. But when he first started dating her, he said, "I don't know, Dad, with what happened before." And I said, "Do you really care for her?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Let me tell you something." I said, "Unless you give your 100% of your trust, you're never going to have the relationship you could have, ever. And you know what? You might get burned again, but you'll never have a
Mhm.
great relationship if you don't trust the person you're with. So if you were one of my clients, I trust you 100%. You don't have to prove stuff to me. If you tell me something, I take it as gospel. I might get burnt. It's only going to happen once, and I won't. It's not that I'll dislike you. I just won't trust you anymore. And I think if people, once they start realizing that, it resonates with them. And there's no better for my whole goal for my company is everybody that's with it is set up financially. It's set up financially so they don't have to worry that they're doing stuff they love. The administrating girl, I met her and you can look for people anywhere. She works for my butcher. She
Oh,
runs the
yeah.
front staff, and just because I get in on an elevator, chances are I'm going to know most of the people before we hit the floor. I just like people, it's just, I just do. But over the years, you get to chat with her, and she's probably in her early 40s, and she's got a couple of kids, and a little disillusions with the way she, not mad at the people. And so when I brought it up to my group, I said, I'm looking at somebody. So what do you think of her? I said, she's got the two things I need. She smiles and she works. That's the entry fee into my company. You don't have to
Yeah.
know everything we do because we can teach you all the other stuff. But you have to, deal with, just it's sometimes that, people will look at it and says that can't be how you are. Well, no, that's how we are. That's just the way it is. The culture in our company has to be really good. And it also gives, if you have that relationship internally, you can have difficult conversations because they're not personal. You
Yes.
know,
I can vouch that again, like we meet every single week, and I can vouch for like this is the way you are every single week we meet, and uh, it's something again. Unfortunately, uh, a lot of people like don't see the world this way, and being able to have this conversation with you, you sharing this, it actually what you were saying with trusting people, like if this is your client, if this is someone coming to work with you, like you trust people. And this is one thing, it reminds me of like I think that they did an experiment where they told teachers that certain kids will they're very like highly intelligent and they're
yeah,
great, and that at the end of the year these kids really did well, but the thing was that it was a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way.
yeah,
And what you're doing in a way when you get into whether it's someone you're working with or any kind of relationship with a person where you trust them, you genuinely believe in them, and you create that kind of self-fulfilling prophecy where people they rise up to your expectations, like they actually, when you see, and I think even Darren Hardy was sharing a story where one of his teachers said at the beginning of the year, you are all A students, and my job is to keep you at A level. Mm. And seeing yourself as a trustworthy person. So again, like what you were sharing is so uh, amazing, and I find it so unique, and really resonates with me, and that's why like I'm so happy to have you here sharing your story and your kind of unique journey
well,
in the business.
it's, and I think, to be honest, I know I don't consider what I do special. Um, it's nice that some people might think that's the way we are. Um, I think we've got so focused on looking for bad that we forgot to look
Yeah,
for good.
mhm.
You know what? There's a lot of good in this world.
Yeah, that's true.
But that doesn't sell newspaper. It doesn't sell print. It doesn't sell advertising. So, and when people talk, like we host, like for example, this got nothing to do with business, but every Saturday night I host both my wife's family and my family who can never make it. We have dinner. Can be anywhere from 6 to 20.
Mm.
Depending who shows up. They have to let me know by 11 so I can cook accordingly. But after the meal, I'll do all the cleanup. And somebody says, why? Because you guys sit around the dining room table. And for lack of a better term, you gossip. You talk about so and so down the street or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not criticizing that. Everybody has their own opinion on how they want to do it, and I respect that. But it's not me.
Mhm.
I'm not interested, to talk about that kind of stuff. So how do I just detach myself from it? So I can clean up and do the kitchen. I put some music on, and I just sit there and clean up the kitchen, do the dishes. I make care packages for everybody, and then
Mhm.
they can have their chit chats about. And I'm not by any stretch of the imagination criticizing. It's just not of interest to me.
Yeah.
So, and I think we spend so much time, when people talk about social media or this and that and everything, I always say, like, I talked to a neighbor once. I said, "Do you think Donald Trump cares if you post something on Facebook?" I said, "Why don't you get your nucleus of your family all happy? Then maybe your
Yeah.
neighbors, and maybe that becomes a block. And then who knows, maybe the whole city, like
Yeah. Yeah.
start cheer, just be happy. Like, so there's, happiness is a choice. And a lot of times it's not the easiest choice, but, so um, what I do isn't special. It's just what it is. So, and when you talked about with my father, like we had different measures, like, and I even have like my daughter say, "Why do you trust him?" I said, "Why shouldn't I?" Like,
Mhm.
so, but I don't criticize the way she handles things either. My youngest son's doing his master's in counseling right now. He works with anxiety and depression. And the only advice I said, you picked a field that I don't know if I could do long term, but you love it. And that's beautiful that you're passionate
Yeah.
about it. I said, if I can give you any type of advice, sometimes people just want you to listen. They don't need advice. They don't want your opinion. And he said, I appreciate that because you're right. Because you have that tendency when somebody says something, you want to fix it.
Oh
Sometimes,
yes.
sometimes they just want help. They just want somebody to listen to them, so, um, there's no better joy. Like if you want more, as they say, give more, helping people is like, wow, like I could sit there and question why other people don't have that attitude, but that's not for me to do,
Oh
you know.
yeah. It's and what again? Why I started these conversations is just to showcase all these different ways and all these different this is like the beauty of our world that like your way is not the only way
No,
there are different business owners doing things in different ways like again based on what you shared it's not like you planned to have a company that branches in all these directions it happened and you're taking like you're seeing the opportunities and you're taking the action and now you have built something amazing and who knows what the future holds and then there are business owners who have a plan and then they follow the steps and they achieve the goals achieve the vision and then they expand with the plan again and that's amazing and again like your personality and who you are shines in everything you do including with your business um,
I
and
have a client in Eastern Canada that we purchase. Our company buys about probably 500,000 a year from him, but we also probably sell on commission another 2 to 3 million for them. You know what I mean?
yeah
So,
yeah
but he says, I'm looking at putting a warehouse out west. I want to. So I looked, I said, why? Well, we can be right across Canada. I said, why? And I just kept, as I said earlier, I just kept
yeah
asking
keep
why.
asking yeah
So he says, you know what? I got to go back and think about this. I said, I'm not, great idea, but why do you want to do it? Not
yeah
because, is it for your ego or what are the reasons? I said, just identify that before you just go in there and shoot your guns. So, um, so it should be fun. Life should be fun. So.
and amazing perspective. I'm actually curious. Two things. Like you've been in business, like you said, you tried to build something that didn't work, like the first attempt.
Failed
Then
miserably.
yeah, you learned from the experience. Then you had a little bit more of a success, which didn't work out either. And now you've had this company for like over 10 years, and in the past couple of years it's grown a lot. So two questions, actually, two sides of things. Like in all these years that you have been in sales, in business, what has changed? The first part is what has changed, and then I want to see also the other part of it. What hasn't changed? What are the principles that still hold true in 2025?
I don't think it's changed at all. I think how people attack it has changed. It's still you're providing a service. One of the things that we will never sacrifice in this company is service. We do not sell a price. We do not sell, we sell a relationship. I think what I do has always been there. Um, when we put, for example, our plans together for each company, the fractional CEO who works with my staff on this, he's got, I want 95% increase in this in the first 3 months. I said, take all that stuff out. Well, no, I said, how are you going to measure people? I said, by height. I said, but he said, what are you about your reviews? I said, if I have people that I have to have a review every week with, I've got the wrong people. You know, I think the service aspect in any job, it doesn't matter with engine parts, print, whatever it is, and what you're doing as well. If people know they can rely on you, they can trust you, they're going to forgive you for some of your mistakes, but they're going to support you. There is people that want to sell mass, they want to sell a price point, they want to sell everybody and their brother, and they don't, from an integrity standpoint, from my personal opinion, they sacrifice some of that to get the stuff. I don't think any of that's really changed. I think the process, regardless of the widget you're selling or the widget you're promoting, I think that's all. It's just how people have adapted to it. I have chosen a route that a lot of times is a lot longer route because people have to, like before I started the company, when I was working with that US supplier, I said, if I sign this contract, I understand I'm not going to make bonus for 2 years but I don't need you bothering me.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, of course you will. I said, no, because your business model is but poor. We're not going to grow the way you're doing it. And I'm going to have to reorganize it. And it took probably 18 months, but they went from consistently 1.5 million to 7.9 million in about 6 years. So we just reorganized
Yeah.
how it went. And I said, you've got to start caring about your customers. When I talk to when I train salespeople, I said, you've got to talk to customers from their stance, not from ours. If it works for them, your end's easy. I said, so I just met with, I won't get detailed about it, with, a company that my wife was associated with. And I was talking to the owner because they've got a real culture problem. And I think that's a big problem in a lot of our companies. And I said to him, what's your most valuable resource here? And he said, well, our customers. I said, that's your problem. So,
Yeah.
what do you mean? I said, it's your people. Look after your people. Don't look after your customers. But a lot of people are so worried about the balance sheet. I would rather lose a deal helping somebody than get a deal and sacrifice, who we're supposed to be. So, and I don't know if that answers you, but I don't think it's changed. I just think it's changed how people have adapted and how they run to it. Sure, there's a social media component, but at the end of the day, with computers, AI, and all this stuff, people buy from people.
Uh, so well said. I'm actually rereading a book called Endless Referrals, and this is what he keeps on saying. People buy from people. It's not computers buying from people or people buying from computers. It's people buying from people they know, like, and trust. And everything you said, like it has been like this whole conversation, caring about others, the relationships, how important they are, how you can build a business. Like you don't need a website. You don't need all these kind of fancy things. Yes, now you are working on the website. You have a CRM, but it's about the relationships. It's about like uh, you just need an email so you can email people, and that's it. Like when you have the relationship, when you do the service, and again, like it's so amazing listening to you. And I know we can continue probably for hours and hours talking about your mindset and the philosophy and the way you and your company work. And I would actually love to have you come up again in the future. But since we're actually approaching the end of the conversation, I wanted to ask you uh, if you can give advice, like ultimately, what advice would you give to other business owners, even aspiring people who might be thinking about starting a business? What advice would you give them to be able to have a successful business, and like you said, also have fun in the process? You mentioned it a couple of times, and it's so important. And people would say it's contradicting, and like, oh, it's kind of like, how can you have fun and work at the same time? But the amazing thing is that when you have fun, things kind of work out on their own. So
If
what
what you're
advice
doing
would you
is
give?
fun, if you work is fun, it's not work.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Um, if anybody was starting a business, and I go back to, repeating myself, my first question is why? What do you hope to achieve with this? Does it align with who you are?
Yeah.
Um, and don't sacrifice who you are, to develop your business, because, as I said earlier, you can't fake sincerity and who you are. So I think first thing, I think a lot of people, I made this comment to my wife once. I said, a lot of people get married because, well, we're supposed to. You know, why'd you get married? Like understand, what you're doing because it's fashionable. No. So why do you want, I think it's very important to understand why you want to do what you want to do. And is it something you like? Like I told a brother of mine once that I said, every time you talk to me about a job, you talk to me how many zeros are in it. I said, I can tell you one, if that's your only goal is money, you're never going to be happy because there's always going to be more.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's a lot of, it's not up for me to judge, but I can live with less as long as I'm comfortable with how I'm presenting it. So, why are you doing it? Then I would say leverage all the relationships you can. If talk to people who've done it, talk to people who failed,
Yeah.
and learn, study. You know, there's too many people I find that just, you expect just, okay, I've started a business. I'm gonna, it's 8 o'clock Monday morning. I'll open the door and turn the lights on. Let's go. Like, but it's not easy, but it's fun if you do it right. And, don't try and start halfway through the chapter. You've got to build it. You've got to take some hits. You've got to learn, what's the one saying I read the other day where it might have been Darren Hardy, success is on top of a whole bunch of failures, so,
Yeah.
so, but I look in the mirror, ask yourself why you're doing it. It's not for everybody. Do I have tough conversations with any of my, of course I do, but I've earned the right to have that conversation, so, I would say, always learn, understand why you're doing it and what's your goal, what you want to do with it. Um, and just be true to yourself, as I tell everybody that I work, the only person you have to be honest with is that person in the mirror.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and like I said, it's unconventional maybe, to you or to somebody else. Seems perfectly normal to me. Know who you are. Stay in your lane. That's, every time you've heard me on the calls and during the week, every time I talk to somebody and I've had some extra time on my hands, they all go, "Oh my God, what now?"
Oh, yes.
Yeah, no, it's just because it's fun. And what I do is when I start a company, I bring somebody in to manage it for me. I get it all set up and running. My girl was ready for her website a year ago, and I put the kibosh on it. I said, if we're busy now, if we start marketing through web and everything, and we get tons of traffic, how are you going to manage that? My company, when a customer calls in, they get a response 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the hour. It might not be the answer, but we've got it. We're working on it. So
Yeah,
if you've
let them
got,
know. Yeah, yeah.
so we communicate. So don't, I said, I'm all for it, but I'm not sacrificing who we are just so I can say I've got a website. I said, I'll look at the content, but at the end of the day, you guys fix it. I don't care what. All I said is we're a little odd, so don't make it cookie cutter.
Oh, yes.
So no, but talk to people. Like so many people want to do it on their own and they don't think they need any help. I'll take help from anywhere. So, but I think it's more important is why you're doing it. Like I would ask, this is a podcast that you're talking to me, but I would ask you, why are you doing it? And I'm sure you've thought that through.
Oh, yes.
And it makes
And
if it aligns with who you are,
yeah.
chances are you're going to be successful. But just be patient and, like I said, lean on as many. When I first got into the industry out of school, my people said if it wasn't for your dad, you wouldn't have a job. I was very uncomfortable with that. I didn't know how to answer that.
Mhm.
And as you grow older and you mature, I said, you know what? If I can leverage somebody's relationship to help me learn and grow, I'm a crazy person not to take it. So lean on people, ask questions.
Yeah, and people, the thing is that people can open doors for you, but then it's up to you to
Yeah,
enter and to actually make something out of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's, you know, if, but like I said, I'm pretty open. I'll answer anything from you or anybody that wanted to know, but I think sometimes we overthink, start. And I think that how I'm running my business and trying to set it up is how I run my family, is how I would like to see more of the world where just be nice.
Yeah, just be nice and kind. Yeah,
Like
caring.
we're up in Canada and we've got old people in the laneway behind us and we shovel their driveways every summer, every winter. And somebody said to me once, "Why do you do that? Do they really appreciate it?" And I said, "Why is it a problem to be nice?" Like,
Yeah. And why do someone needs to appreciate it for you to go and do it? It's like,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Well, our
So-
web guy wanted to put some of the charity work I do in town. And I said, "No, that's not, well, it humanizes you." I said, I'm a human.
yeah,
I don't want to be the poster child, you know, that's not, I don't need the accolades. I don't need, if I can see, but I would say on that, and let you get off, but my wife, who is probably the nicest person I've met, I used to joke she just didn't marry well, but, what she gets her mad. But I said, "Leah, why do you do things for people all the time?" She was like, "I like helping people. It makes me feel good to see them smile." I said, "Yeah, I get it." And I said, "So when somebody wants to do from you and you want something for you and you won't let them, you're denying them that same feeling."
Oh, very good point.
And I said, "So if somebody wants to help you, let them. Say thank you." I put this senior people in the house and I said, "I'm going to give you the first 2 months, the first 6 weeks, 2 weeks free, just so you can move in." And they said, "Oh no, we'll give you $1,000, whatever." I said, "No, no, free." So no, we want to give you something. I said, "Don, learn to say thank you."
Yeah,
So just, it's not only pleasant to give it, but when somebody tries to help, let them, because
yeah,
don't
yeah.
deny them that same feeling.
Yeah, exactly. Give and also receive, because this is, yeah, you're right. In some ways, we are not taught to receive. Like when something comes our way, it's like,
Pardon my English, but I suck at it.
yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
like, I'm just, I don't, I don't. The old guy I helped, he said, I'd like to do something for you. I said, the only way you're going to upset me is buy me something. I
yeah,
said, friendship is doing stuff for that you can help with. So,
yeah.
but
I also love
I
the
need
idea.
to get better at it.
Yeah, yeah. I also love the idea of paying it forward. Like you help someone and then how you can repay in a way is like pay it forward. Like you said, you make someone happy, they make someone else happy, and it kind of ripples. And again,
I know you're
yeah,
at the end, but it's funny how you say that because I remember was a hotel in Edmonton I used to always stay in when I was out there, and there's a native Indian girl behind the counter, very pleasant. And I was reading at breakfast one day, and she asked me what I was reading, so I told her, and
mm,
I recommend these two books. She goes, "Well, thank you." So I wrote them down for her, and the next time I was in town, because her parents had kicked her off the reservation, so she was trying to make it on her own. I said, "Did you get a
mm,
chance to read those books?" She goes, "Well, I'm try after my rent and everything, I'm trying to go to University of Alberta, and I just really got to watch my money." So on my way back to the hotel that night from work, from my meetings, I stopped at the bookstore and I bought them both for her. And I had to check out and I left, so I didn't see her. And I got an email about a week later, and it was one of my favorite emails. She's like, "Can't thank you enough for your kindness and generosity, and I can't wait to the point in my life where I can play that forward for somebody else."
yeah, yeah,
Wow. There you get it. That was the best compliment I think one of the best compliments I've ever received. Somebody who really understood that doing things for people
yeah,
is where we got to be. So,
yeah. I'm getting goosebumps. Thank you.
like I said,
Yeah, thank you.
I wouldn't write a book on how I run a business.
Hmm.
It's it works because I won't let it not work. That has to be our mantra, you know.
Yeah,
And my marketing girl, I emailed her last Monday, and Thursday I phoned her. I said, "Yeah, I'm working on it." And I said, "As far as I'm concerned, you ghosted me. Is that who our company is? We don't respond?" Well, she goes, "I understand." I said, "Obviously you don't because you haven't responded. You know, it's a habit.
yeah.
Get in the habit of doing good things." So, you're not going to win them all, but you're going to win more than you lose.
That's very true. And the thing is that like one of the what I really appreciate about your story is that a lot of times in business, like things come from the headspace, like numbers, logic, like systems and processes. Which, yes, absolutely, like you said, you have systems and things like this. But we forget about the other two parts that we have, like the heart and our intuition as well, the gut. And I mentioned how much I resonate with what you're sharing because uh, a lot of what you talk about is the heart, caring for others, serving others, whether it's your clients, your neighbors, it doesn't matter, like human beings everywhere. And then the intuition as well. I truly believe that we all know why we're here, what to do, like you said, even how to do. And what you bring to business, it's not the traditional business book, but you're bringing the heart together with everything else, which is something that, again, I do believe that the world needs to hear. And like the best example we can give as business owners, as leaders, is showing as full human beings with the heart, with the mind, and the intuition, the gut. And again, really appreciate your insights today, Dan. Fascinating, really, really fascinating.
Well, I've enjoyed your company from day one, and I think my biggest regret is I don't know enough about your company, and
Uh,
that's on me.
good, good
That's
point.
on me. You get so wrapped up in the hour that we spend together on Thursdays that, sometimes and at some point in time, I'm going to be knocking on your door and like, how can I help? I don't want anything for it, but maybe there's something you're doing that, hey, I can point you somewhere. I don't know that, but I know briefly what your company does, and you know, but I also owe it to myself to get involved with people and listening. So, as my dad said, I've never seen a sales guy list themselves out of an order. So I've seen them talk themselves out of stuff, but no, and I'd love to reverse the trend someday and just, have you talk to me and about your journeys too, because it's important, you know.
Yeah, having these kind of conversations, that's true. Well, I really appreciate you showing up today and sharing your story. And yes, I know we're talking about having lunch or dinner as well soon, so I'm sure we'll get a chance to continue the conversation and learn even more.
Well, I can learn how to use a
And yeah.
napkin and stuff like that too. So cutlery, I don't know. So, but no, I appreciate you taking the time, and like I said, I really love what you're doing, and you're a good person,
Thank you.
and and that's we need more of you.
Thank you.
People like
Yeah.
you. So thanks very much for, even considering me to talk to you on this. So I appreciate
Yeah, and I also truly believe that we need more people like you. So,
it.
um,
All right. Well, thanks again. And I guess we'll talk to you very shortly.
oh yes, I know. We have the call tomorrow morning. Well, then enjoy the rest of your day. I know you're working after our call. Have fun. And oh, so you're still working on the website, uh, and like you don't have a
I,
website, but
I'm not.
your company and things. Any way people can connect with your company, or like we with you? Do you use any? Uh,
Well, the website's under construction, so that's not going to get you. Like my email's fine, or my phone number. I don't care if somebody wants information. Somebody was starting a business and something I said might have resonated. I'm happy to talk to anybody. So, and I don't, you have my personal email. My business one is just info@lakettagroup.com.
Perfect. Okay.
So, and the guy that's working with our company, he wants to change it to Dan@lakettagroup.com. And I said, why are you bothering me? Do whatever you want. So, and the only thing I made the girl do is take my, she had CEO and founder on in my business card. And I said, no, nothing, no title.
Uh,
So we're all the same here. So,
Awesome. Okay, so I'll add the information will be in the description as well if people want to connect. And once the website is available, we can update the description of the episode and put the website there as well. So if you are listening after the website is there, like you'll see the website actually, so you can check it when it's available. But again, thank you so much, Dan. Really appreciate you and
it was a pleasure.
enjoy the rest of
You,
your day.
you made me talk about my least favorite subject, me. So I'm not,
Well,
that's not unique. We don't
yes,
typically
yeah,
like to
yeah,
talk about ourselves. So, but
yeah,
thank you so
yes.
much for taking the time. I really do appreciate it, Anna.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Take care. Bye bye.
You too. Bye then. Bye.